So I love the idea of composting, right? Making sure my food scraps don't end up in one of Chicago's landfills. But to be honest with y'all, I don't really know how it works. And I'm pretty sure I ain't got the space for it in my apartment. Now, if that also sounds like you, maybe we should try Waste Not. Waste Not provides convenient curbside composting, making it easy to reduce waste at home. So maybe give it a try. Head to wastenotcompost.com. CityCast Chicago listeners can get a free month to test out Waste Not by using the promo code CityCastCompost. Again, that's wastenotcompost.com. What's up, y'all? I'm back with some more shows you gotta check out at Ravinia this summer. Now, if you missed it, Ravinia is North America's longest running outdoor music festivals, and it has one of the most packed lineups I've ever seen. On July 27th, you can catch Killer Queen, a tribute to Queen, or check out Gypsy Kings with Nicholas Reyes on July 31st, or maybe see Indigo Girls and Melissa Etheridge on August 11th. Choose your concert and choose how you want to watch it. You could pack your own picnic on the lawn or sit up close in the pavilion, or you could be like me and do both of them. Buy your tickets today only at ravinia.org. Today on CityCast Chicago, we've got the latest on former Loretto Hospital execs who are facing federal fraud charges. Bally's says they are still committed to a Chicago casino. And have you spotted any crappy cake art across the city? Joining me to break it all down from Axios Chicago, Carrie Shepard, and Block Club Chicago's Kelly Bauer. It's Friday, July 19th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Morning, Carrie. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I'm so happy to see you.
Hey, it's always good to see you. I appreciate you getting into the closet. I know that's where you are right now. That's the usual podcast studio setup. I will recognize it anywhere, anytime.
So true. So true.
We also got Kelly Bauer back. And if you are an Eagle Eye CityCast Chicago listener, Kelly, you were on the 5th episode of CityCast Chicago when we premiered back in March of 2021. And we really appreciate you being back all these years later. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be back. I love talking with you.
It's going to come full circle because the investigation you were like really just opening up back in March of 2021. 3 years later, we've got updates and oh my God, it's another one of those classic Chicago stories involving what, up to like $15 million in fraud on a West Side hospital. But hey, let me slow down. We're going to get there. We at that point of the week where it seems that we are past the worst of the weather that we saw earlier this week. I said it in Tuesday's episode. There were earthquakes. We had multiple tornado warnings and tornadoes touched down. The storms were torrential in points of the city. Carrie, I know your neighborhood was impacted. You're over in Ukrainian Village. What did that look like?
So, yeah, it's kind of, we were talking about this a little before we started. It's kind of in the city, it's difficult in tornadoes. You know, if you grew up in a house growing up, you were like, you went to the basement, but like we live in a 3-flat on the top floor. Luckily, our neighbors have a house, so they have a basement. And so we were going to run over there, but instead we hunkered down in the middle bathroom and the bathtub, me and the dog in the bathtub. But the damage around here, trees down Smith Park, like most of the trees on Rockwell were down. I showed you guys a picture before we started. Yesterday, I saw a car with a huge tree had literally been uprooted. You know, when you see those big old trees and you see these roots and you're like, man, that is deep. Uprooted and fallen on a car. I saw pictures of trees through windshields. And it was serious. We were watching ABC7's coverage of it, and all the meteorologists were like, we've never seen anything like this. Oh my gosh, a tornado touched down at O'Hare. I can't imagine how terrifying that must have been. But just a lot of damage. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but very, very scary.
Yeah, I feel like every year I'm learning more and more about what weather is possible in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area. I feel like all of this, like earthquake, tornado, ignorance that I had, even the wildfire smoke last year. I'm just like, okay, so much more is possible in our city than I realized. Kelly, when you start getting those tornado warnings like blasting off on your phones, what's your first reaction?
Well, this time around, my first reaction was like, "You're gonna wake up my baby. What are you doing?" We had just gotten her down for the night, and I get this big buzz on my phone, and I was like, "Oh God." And then, I'm a relatively new mom, so I'm doing all the first time mom panic of like, should I go in her room? Should I go sleep with her? Should I bring her in the club? And I think it was my husband who kind of talked me down and was like, I think we can just sit here. Since by us it was really just rain. So it wasn't too bad for us, but definitely had some of those jitters of just like, oh God, some crazy weather. What exactly are we supposed to do? We live in a two flat, so we have the same thing where it's not like we've got a basement we can run to. I think for me it was a good learning moment of I probably need to create some sort of emergency plan.
Exactly. That's where I was on the sixth floor looking out the window because we have a lot of trees in our yard, and I started to see the branches fly. And I was like, yeah, I actually am not prepared for any of these things. Like if the power go out or nothing. So maybe I should put some effort and some time into this. So Kelly, thank you for the reminder. And Carrie, hopefully for the people in your neighborhood, nobody was seriously hurt. Hopefully power is being restored in neighborhoods across the city in the Chicagoland area still. And so I know there are more people worse off than we were through these storms. And so we're still thinking about them as well. Every single Friday, we like to bring in our friends from across the city of Chicago to talk about some of the biggest stories that they were thinking about this week. And Kelly, as I said earlier in the show, we've got you back here on a real full circle moment. The first time you and I spoke, we were piloting CityCast Chicago. And one of the biggest stories at the time was obviously we were in the thick of the COVID-19 crisis. The vaccine had just become available, and it really had just become available for the most vulnerable people in the city. And of course, we also saw during that time a lot of people getting over. And you were reporting on a story with Loretto Hospital, a hospital in Austin. At the time you were looking into Loretto in March of 2021, what was going on, and kind of walk us into where we are now.
Yeah. Oh, it has been a journey over these past 3 years.
Yes, it has.
It started with just one tipster reaching out to us and kind of questioning, like, hey, I heard some people got vaccinated at Trump Tower, and aren't these shots supposed to be saved right now for the most vulnerable Chicagoans? Like you said, Jacoby, Black and brown Chicagoans, low income folks, essential workers. So they were just kind of questioning what happened here. And we looked into that and were able to confirm those Trump Tower vaccinations. But we kept getting tips and kept poking around, and we eventually confirmed there had also been vaccinations at this ritzy jewelry and watch shop in Gold Coast, and then at a high-end steakhouse, and then at a suburban church, and at a doctor's home in the suburbs, things like that. And all of these places were connected to executives at Loretto, and in particular to the CFO and COO, Dr. Anash Ahmed. But then I had tipsters who were telling me that there's more to what happened at Loretto. So I partnered with Dave Jackson, and we were able to confirm more of those stories. And one of the first big stories that we came out with was that a person, Mr. Samir Suhail, who was friends and Trump Tower neighbors and business partners with Dr. Ahmed, had been awarded millions in contracts from Loretto Hospital. Even initially it raised questions about like, is this something that should be happening? Like, should an executive's buddy be getting these contracts? What's the oversight here? When we looked into it, we found that some of these companies like didn't even have websites, or if they had websites, they were super bare bones. There wasn't a lot of public information about them. Mr. Suhail had a ton of companies registered with the state, and they were, had a ton of alternate names. So it made it really, really hard to track what all these companies were doing, what kind of money they were getting. And then, Loretto just wouldn't answer a lot of questions about them as well. So our stories kept coming out. We revealed that the FBI and the Illinois Attorney General's office was investigating, which is a process that, can take some time. And now, years and years later, Dr. Ahmed, Mr. Suhail, and another former Loretto executive, Heather Bergdahl, have now all been charged with, prosecutors say they embezzled $15 million from the hospital using these companies.
Ahmed faces 15 counts. Bergdahl faces 36 counts. And Mr. Suhail faces 14 counts, all on embezzlement, wire fraud, and a number of other charges. I mean, to see this roll out over time, one, I want to ask you, like I know that this was an uphill battle, but also for the people who Loretto Hospital serves, the people who were hurt by, all of this, what is their reaction to these reports?
It was definitely an uphill battle. Just in the beginning, when we were writing about the vaccines, Loretto's spokespeople continually denied that these improper vaccines happened, even when our stories had proof, like photographic proof that they happened. We also had a powerful state leader, Senate Majority Leader Kim Lightford, who, went on radio and did press conferences where she criticized our reporting and defended Loretto's executives and Loretto's actions. Again, Loretto is meant to serve the most vulnerable people in Chicago. It's a safety net hospital. A lot of the people who go there are low income. They're underinsured, if they're insured at all. They use Medicaid for health services, things like that. And our stories just showed that Loretto, which was getting a lot of taxpayer money, was sending that money through these companies to a friend of an executive. And while this was happening, problems at the hospital soared. There wasn't strong evidence that things were getting better for people on the West Side. After our reporting, Loretto's board did promise to do more oversight, to kind of have a stronger hold on those major contracts to avoid things like this happening. The FBI and the Illinois AG's office investigated. Even with the vaccines, the city seized control of Loretto's vaccine doses. That way it could make sure it was vulnerable West Siders who were getting the shots.
One question I'm just interested in, because I know Ahmed Bergdahl, they ended up, was it stepping down or were they fired? Because it wasn't just them who stood in your way. There were spokespeople, like you said, who ultimately was punished for these actions prior to now.
The punishments were, didn't so much happen. So during our vaccine stories, Dr. Ahmed did resign. He said he didn't want to be a distraction. Loretto's board did say that they were going to punish the CEO, George Miller, as well as Dr. Ahmed. But at first they wouldn't say what punishment they were giving them. And then when they did say, it turned out that it was just 2 weeks unpaid suspension, which is not that serious of a punishment for executives who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
And you still got an inside person, because Bergdahl still sent him money to these fraudulent bank accounts after he resigned.
Yeah, so even after Ahmed was gone, prosecutors say Bergdahl was there and was a part of this alleged embezzlement scheme. And they mentioned that there were others involved. They refer to an employee A who got proceeds from this scheme, and that person is not named, but they say that it was an executive who worked from 2017 to 2020, and that fits exactly with the former CEO, George Miller.
Well, we will continue to follow this story. Kelly, I appreciate you so much for all you have done in this investigation. We'll drop links in the show notes so people can follow all of your recent reporting on this. When was the last time you visited Chicago's free zoo? Nah, for real, Lincoln Park Zoo is free. I was just up there like 2 months ago. From outings with family and friends to a picture-perfect date spot, Lincoln Park Zoo makes for a perfect, budget-friendly summer day. In between the penguin encounters, carousel rides, delicious food, free daily programs, and more, trust me, there is so much to do. Like, did you know Lincoln Park Zoo has one of the largest zoo-based conservation and science programs in the country? They prioritize conservation, both here in Chicago and around the world, and they take animal care very seriously, running the nation's top zoo-based animal welfare science program. So as you catch a glimpse of the many animals at Lincoln Park Zoo during your next visit, like my personal favorite, the red panda and snow leopard, You can feel good knowing your visit makes an impact. This summer, visit the Pride of Chicago Lincoln Park Zoo. Go to lpzoo.org to plan your next visit to Chicago's free zoo this summer. I don't know about y'all, but I am sick of the spam calls, spam emails, spam texts. I'm over it. I'm up to over 100 combined a day. And it turns out a lot of that spam starts with our personal data being sold. Data brokers basically collect info like our address, phone number, health and financial records, and then sell them off to third parties. Then that data is used to target us. That's why I think it's time to check out Incogni. It scrubs our personal info from the web. Nah, seriously. It takes just a few minutes to set up, then it'll tackle 180 plus data brokers, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee if you ain't feeling it. Protect your data, time, and sanity. Use code CityCast for 55% off their annual plan at incogni.com. That's spelled INCOGNI.com. Carrie, I want to bring you in here. Obviously, so many eyes, I won't necessarily say mine, but a lot of eyes have been on the RNC this week, which has got more people talking about the forthcoming DNC. We are a month away from it touching down in the city of Chicago. What does that look like for us?
I do think since the DNC, is at the United Center on the near west side, there are West Siders and people who live near the United Center who are waiting to see what the security perimeter around the United Center is going to be. The security perimeter, because the DNC is a national event, the Secret Service, U.S. Secret Service, teams up with Chicago Police Department, and they actually established the security perimeter. And they have told us that, they've told reporters that it's expected to come out July 25th. The reason this matters to people who live and work nearby is because your access to getting around is going to be very limited. And people who, they want to know, am I going to be able to get to work on time? General rule of thumb, your week's going to be messed up. Like traffic's going to be terrible, everything. But to your point about RNC, and not just the RNC, but obviously the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump last weekend prompted CPD Superintendent Larry Snelling to have a press conference on Monday to just kind of reassure the public that they are still working very hard about keeping DNC attendees and people in the city safe. He made this point that, last Saturday's event in Pennsylvania, this was an outside event. People at the DNC are going to be indoors. He also said we've been preparing for this for a year. That wasn't the case there. He's been very, very vigilant about that. He's also been vigilant that the department has, quote unquote, learned from 2020 and how police responded to those protests. He said that the department has learned from the mistakes they admittedly had made in those protests.
We already know how protesters have largely been limited from being close to the United Center to McCormick Place. I know there's still some confusion around body cam protocol. And let's remember that the mistakes, right, that was made, when police make mistakes, this is often causing violence and harm to other people, right? In 2020, we saw peacefully assembling people be barricaded in, have bikes used against them as weapons, have cars blocking them off, have sort of bridges raised. And so I think the concern people have going in, both the practical concern for the people who live close by, the concern for people who plan on protesting or even just being near the DNC campuses, I obviously is heightened coming out of the RNC. And so I imagine we're going to see charged response at the DNC. And so, my concern is just there for everyday Chicagoans trying to navigate, manage, and protest during the DNC.
Of course. And let's not forget that the Chicago Police Department is under a federal order for reform. So there are mandates on them that are overseen by federal oversight on making sure they hit said reforms. Now, it's been reported in the past they have not met some of those reforms. And this is going, this is part of this as well, as the Inspector General, you referenced this with preparing for the DNC. She was concerned that some of their preparations fell short of what is mandated by some of these, by the consent decree for reform. You mentioned in 2020 sort of boxing people in. That's this terrible practice known as kettling. And they say they're no longer going to be doing kettling. Also, it should be noted, and, in RNC, there was this terrible story of somebody was shot, someone who was reportedly homeless, and he was shot, and it was by, as I recall, not a Milwaukee police officer.
The man killed by police in Milwaukee was Samuel Sharp Jr.
And Snelling said this week that about 500 officers, I don't know if it's National Guardsmen, they'll be coming in to help with security for the DNC. So it's not just that we want to make sure that there's people peacefully protesting. We want to make sure that there is peaceful response and that it doesn't, to your point, turn violent. And, for everyday Chicagoans, let's be honest, on these conventions, they got to get to work. It's the traffic, it's the busy trains, it's all that stuff that really affects them. But it can sort of turn into this chaotic environment if around, the protesters, the coalition to march on the DNC, they're expecting 50,000 protesters. And that's part of their pushback. Currently, they did have a win after months of litigation with the city. They can now, their march can start at Union Park and be closer to the United Center. The city had suggested they be like 3 or 4 miles from the United Center. But now their pushback is we need a larger march path because there's going to be 50,000 people. So, and who knows if it's going to be even more than that.
A story that came out of Block Club Chicago this week follows up on what's happening at Lathrop Homes, where after 2 decades, 300 apartments are still empty. I have worked at Lathrop Homes before doing storytelling there, and you notice as you are walking the grounds, the clear distinction between the buildings that have been rehabbed and the buildings that have just sort of been left to decay and left to the weather. Can you walk us through this update?
Years and years ago in 1999, there were 925 public housing units at Lathrop. And the CHA, the Chicago Housing Authority, promised that they were going to do a major renovation. I think they called it their plan for transformation for all these public housing units around the city. Instead, now it's, 2024, and we've got we have 488 units total, and only 179 of those are public housing at Lathrop. And so our reporter and investigations editor, Mick Dumke, paired with one of our interning reporters, Alexandra Murphy, to look into this and to really talk to some of Lathrop's residents, former and present, about what's happened and how they feel about it. And of course, a lot of them are saying they feel left behind.
As we continue to read the story of just how many CHA properties are sitting vacant, underdeveloped, the amount that still are probably likely just going to be torn down because they say they're too costly to rehab, which obviously is just a problem that was self-created by the CHA, leaving them there for 2 decades. I just wonder how the Johnson administration is going to prioritize those CHA properties in the coming years.
Yeah, we know that one of the biggest problems in Chicago right now is that there's an affordable housing crisis. But the CHA has effectively just let a lot of these units at Lathrop and even at other public housing facilities just rot. They've actually been receiving millions of dollars from the federal government all these years to renovate the buildings, to make them better places to live. And instead, they're in worse condition than ever because they've just been left. So I think a lot of people are looking for the same answers you are about what's going to happen next. And I got to say, like, my little connection to this is that my grandpa grew up in Lathrop Homes right when it first started. And so he talks about this all the time and how it was a place where it gave his family, who was low income, like a real place to live and to kind of put themselves together after his mom had passed away. And it's just a shame that there are now so many families who aren't getting that same opportunity for a nice, affordable home.
There have been a lot of speculations about the future of the Bally's Casino in Chicago. Some, I've heard that the temporary casino in River North is underperforming. We've all seen that plans for the layout and construction schedule for the permanent casino have changed a couple of times. And some have even said that the likelihood of Bally's completing their Chicago casino is like worse every single day. However, in recent weeks, it seems like Bally's executives have scoffed at this idea. Carrie, what's the latest?
Yeah, I was going to say maybe everyone but Bally's is saying, is this going to be built? So I sort of like jokingly kind of say this is underreported because it came out on Monday when we were all distracted by other headlines, obviously, from last weekend. But that Bally's had secured some funding. And this is a big deal because of all the reasons you just pointed out. They also released new renderings. The 500-room hotel that they had planned to build, they found out that it would possibly damage where they had previously planned it, water pipes underneath. Gaming and Leisure Properties, Inc. has agreed to fund up to $940 million. But here's kind of the catch. And when I say catch, if you read Alderman Anthony Beale had a op-ed in the Sun-Times this week about he thinks this is there's a lot of casino gambling cliches in there, the alderman, but it was very well written. But this is a quote-unquote bad bet in that Bally's has to sell to this GLPI the land where the Chicago casino will be developed, which, as we said, is on the west side of the Chicago River around Halsted, kind of in the River West area. They also have to sell property that Bally's owns in other cities. This is meant to help kind of the $800 million funding gap that Bally's has said they have for this, $1.3 billion project of building this permanent casino. And we should be clear, it's not just a casino. It's sort of an entertainment district of, a hotel, a theater, multiple restaurants, a park, and then, of course, the casino. And, this history of this is like, Chicago couldn't get a casino. And the argument by a lot of lawmakers was like, especially state lawmakers, was like, why would we give Chicago a casino when we have these suburban casinos that do quite well? We're not going to hand over our money to you. But you talk to gamblers and some of them say, like, they still don't go to the temporary casino at Medina Temple. They still go out to Rivers or Des Plaines, wherever. They go to these other casinos that have been up and running for a very long time. There's also reports of, like, Bally's is doing what they said they wouldn't do, which is kind of this predatory, sending shuttles to South Side neighborhoods, Chinatown, and shuttling Bally's visitors to the Medina Temple.
I've seen the shuttle signs outside the building.
I've seen the shuttle too. And to be fair, I should be clear. I don't know who's on those shuttles. I don't know where they came from. But, Bally's, the temporary casino, has done these kind of perks. They've offered free parking across the street. They're doing these perks to kind of get people in. And so the reason this is kind of timely now as well is that Bally's finally took the land, which was the former Tribune printing plant a couple of Fridays ago, July 5th. So they've also started the preparation for demolishing what's there. Bally's has told me that they plan to start demolition in August of the Tribune printing plant. And then obviously it will be prepping the site. But they say they're on track to open in 2026.
Every single episode of CityCast Chicago ends with some good news. Kelly, what is your good news for the CityCast Chicago listeners today?
I feel like this is going to sound so random, but I saw this adorable CBS story that's about this woman who makes cakes except that they're just painted. They're not edible in any way. It's just a canvas that looks like a 3D cake. And she puts them all over the city, like by the beaches, by the CTA, all kinds of things. And they just kind of have some funny, quotes on them and things like that. And it's just meant to be something that brightens your day. She calls it like her crappy cake art. And it was just one of those things where it just really made me love Chicago, just the things people do. The fact that, it wasn't enough for her to make her crappy cakes at home. She wanted to share it with the whole city. I just really loved it. And it just gave me a little smile. And I think that's what we all need sometimes. It's just a silly little story.
Anna Lasbury. I had to look this up.
Me too. These are amazing. These are not real cakes. These are very funny. You don't have to be everyone's cup of tea. Certified yapper. Oh my God, these are so funny.
Yes, CBS has this great video where they show her making them, and even when she's putting on like the painted frosting, she like does it like real frosting on a cake.
Amazing.
I just love it. I don't know.
Thank you for putting me on. Shout out to Anna. We're going to drop a link to crappy cake art so y'all people can laugh with us. Carrie, what about you? What is your good news today?
Well, I love that story. And I love cake, real cake. But I'm going to do a callback because I haven't been on CityCast since this happened. But back in April, Jacoby won a award, which is a fantastically important journalism award, uplifting voices. But the reason this is important is like all of us know with awards. I mean, if it's given by your peers, and you got this because other journalists nominated you. And I just want to say, and I went and attended the award ceremony. Some other friends also got an award. And, Jacoby's speech was really beautiful. And it gave me so much joy because it reminded me what a unique and particular perspective you have on the city and how important it is. And I just love your curiosity of all this stuff that you bring to people through CityCast and that you just like always have respect and wonder for. And it was really a moment of joy for me to watch you talk about that and to watch you talk about CityCast and how much it's grown. So that's my moment of joy from April. That's not to say I haven't had any joy since then, but I don't mean to say I haven't had any joy in 3 months, but I've had some rough months. So.
You're so funny and so kind.
It was beautiful.
Thank you. Again, thank you to Public Narrative for giving me the 2024 Uplifting Voices Award. It was really cool. I'm going to close us out with some good news. The Three Kings Graffiti Battle is coming to Back of the Yards on Saturday and Sunday. It's a live mural painting by 20 plus artists. Of course, they're going to have live music out there. There's going to be food out there. They're going to have some drinks out there. But it's Chicago versus LA versus New York City. Saturday and Sunday, and they're gonna be playing at they're gonna be painting at the Western Orange Line stop, and so that's gonna be real cool. I just think the street art around Chicago, I'm not gonna say it's taken for granted because I think at least we celebrate it, but I think there is so much that it's hard to truly like appreciate it because it is such a common part. It doesn't really matter where you are in the city. You are going to find it on a viaduct, on the side of a building, in an alley, maybe on like the side of a skyscraper or a high rise. Like it's everywhere in this city. And so the idea that people are coming here to battle, I hope it's rigged. And, I hope Chicago just wins straight up. But if not, I hope it's rigged. That's coming as somebody who is an avid cheater at Monopoly. So I'm down to tip the scales a little bit when it comes to murals. But that looks very exciting. And if people want to learn more, I will drop a link in the show notes for you. That is also where you can find all of the articles we talked about today. I got to give another huge thank you to our guest today. Again, we are not CityCast Chicago without the people who come out here and share their hard work and also their good news. So I want to give another huge thank you from Block Club Chicago, Kelly Bauer. Kelly, it's always good to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really love seeing you again.
And to Axios Chicago and CityCast Chicago OG, Carrie Shepard, thank you for joining us, my friend.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Before we let you go, we got to give a huge thank you to the people who make CityCast Chicago possible. And we got a fantastic team over here, y'all. Give a round of applause for our executive producer, Simone Alisea, producer Michelle Navarro, our Hey Chicago newsletter editor, Sydney Madden, roving newsletter editor this week, Natalia Aldana. The music we all love is from the homie Sam Thousand, All the Kimonos, and Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. And our last and biggest thank you, of course, is for you. We're going to be back here bright and early on Monday. Tap into the website in the meantime, in between time. Subscribe to the newsletter. I'll talk to you then. Peace. According to your reporting, it should take 5 months, the demolition.
Okay. Did I report that? Then, hey, that's right then. Yes, I do report it. Let's be honest. All of us can't remember every detail of all the things we're reporting.